Hello guys, today's video is about Far Cry 6. Far Cry 6 is the latest and quite possibly the greatest in Ubisoft's long-running open-world shooter series. The island of Yara is a beautiful, gorgeous, dangerous place to explore, loaded with secrets and objectives that are actually worth hunting down this time. It's still best enjoyed in small doses, however, as Ubisoft's tendency to fill every inch of the map with side objectives persists. The Far Cry series has been in a bit of a slump this past half-decade. Far Cry Primal and Far Cry New Dawn proved middling spin-offs, while the promise of Far Cry 5 floundered in an uninspiring setting and the muddied politics of its story. Enter Far Cry 6, which returns in the series to its more exotic roots with the fictional Caribbean island of Yara. While Yara is an utterly gorgeous place to explore, reef with charming little towns, jungles and mountainous expanses, it's very much under lock and key by ruthless dictator Anton Castillo, because it just wouldn't be a Far Cry game without a comical evil head of state to overthrow. With an emphasis of guerrilla warfare and makeshift weaponry, Far Cry 6 good guys certainly feel like the underdogs here, which makes for a game that's undeniably satisfying to play, though as you work towards taking down the foreheads of Castillo's regime at one at a time. Far Cry 6 definitely doesn't reinvent the wheel, though, and can still very much grow repetitive during long sessions, but it presents the serious gameplay loop in a more compelling way than ever before. Far Cry 6 puts players in the role of Danny Rojas, a native Yaran with dreams of escaping Castillo's regime to the sunny shores of Miami, Florida. After choosing your gender for Danny, they get the chance to escape during the game's intro section, but after the attempt goes south, they wash up on a faraway beach as the sole survivor and are promptly ushered into the ranks of Libertad, a small army of freedom fighters dedicated to overthrowing Castillo. It's here where the game opens up, and Danny can disembark from the islet of Libertad HQ to tackle each section of Yara in whichever order they please. Each area has their own group of revolutionaries fighting against the powers that be, and each group of characters is surprisingly likable. The goons on Castillo's team are a little less convincing, unfortunately. Each of the big man's underlings, including his nephew Jose and Canadian corporatist Sean McKay, are cartoonishly evil. It makes them easy to hate, sure, but their one-dimensional nature falls far short of the much more well-realized Anton Castillo. And speaking of the man himself, Anton Castillo might be just the best Far Cry villain to date. It's fair to say that Far Cry 6 turns the serious sandbox-style gameplay well up to 11. The game's emphasis of guerrilla warfare encourages players to use makeshift weapons and whatever they can find in the immediate environment to get one over on Castillo's forces. While stealth is still a viable option, as it has been since Far Cry 3, it's easy to get the feeling that Far Cry 6 absolutely doesn't want you to take this approach. Not because slinking around a military base picking off guards one by one isn't fun, it certainly is, but more because Far Cry 6 represents a vast arsenal of weapons that are extremely tough to say no to. The biggest addition to combat in Far Cry 6 is undoubtedly Revolver and Supremo weapons. The former are makeshift weapons thrown together with everyday objects. For example, one Revolver weapon is a literal nail gun that's highly effective against unarmored targets. Another appears to be a slot machine converted into a firework launcher with which you can fire one at a time as a whole stack of 9 to completely decimate vehicles like tanks and helicopters. Far Cry 6 doesn't exactly reinvent the wheel of the long-running series. What it does do, however, it presents Far Cry's open-world gameplay loop in a manner more fun and accessible than ever before. Side objectives are plentiful but don't suffocate the map or overwhelm the player in their volume. Instead, you get a reasonable sense of progression as you take back territory across Yara. Leaning into themes of revolution and guerrilla warfare perfectly suits the Far Cry series, presenting a story and cast of characters more compelling than has ever been seen in the series so far. This serves to make some story beats genuinely involving and surprisingly emotional at times. The game can often lean a bit too heavily in the series' trappings, and it's not quite free from that tried and tested Ubisoft level of repetition. When enjoyed in short bursts, though, Far Cry 6 is simply some of the most fun we've had with a shooter in all of 2021. If you're looking for a first-person adventure that could potentially last you months, you can certainly do much worse than Far Cry 6. So this was a short review on Far Cry 6. I hope, guys, you liked this review, and if you are the fans of the series, please let me know what you think about this part. Thank you for your attention. Goodbye.